All right, it is 9:15, and what do? We award all the people that are on time by starting on time. So my name is Dr. Anna Stump. I have had a very diverse career, which is kind of my going to be my chat with you today is to kind of tell you different ways that you can focus in an area, but also add in a lot of diverse skill sets and experiences. Went to college for marketing, and I spent 10 years working for the world's largest company. And then I became a high school teacher, and I taught high school business classes for about 7 years, and then became a college professor, and then did that for about 8 years. I worked at an organization here in Indianapolis called TechPoint, and that's kind of where I learned a lot about tech jobs and how trends go in this area. And then I became training and development, and now I do leadership coaching. So when you get really old, you have a lot to say about all the different jobs and things you've done. So that's kind of using my experience in and outside the classroom. And being a marketer, we kind of study people and generations and trends and consumer behavior. So I'm still interested in a lot of all of that. When I was teaching high school, I had a conversation with a student who led me to this concept of this golden ticket that you all have. And to me, your golden ticket is you can start a conversation with any person, whether they're in industry, whether they're, somebody that your parents know, or somebody that you know just professionally, or a guest speaker, or whatever it is. And you start with, I am a high school student, and anybody in the professional world will want to hear what comes next in your sentence. Like, I'm a high school student, and I would love to hear your journey, like your career path, or what you think about, jobs of the future, what you think about this college major, what do you think about this certification or this program. They want to talk to you. So to me, that's your golden ticket. I call it your golden ticket because it'll open any door, it'll start any conversation. But once you're not a student anymore, right? Once we kind of like take your ticket apart and hand you the stub back, then you don't have that. So to me, it's a time-sensitive, precious type thing. So let's talk about one of the things that I find to be one of the most interesting facts that I found when I was researching my conversation with you today. And that is that in the next 5 years, 85% of jobs that will exist in 5 years aren't jobs today. Isn't that hard to think about? That the majority of jobs in the next 5 years that we know about today a lot of them will be either replaced or transitioned to the point that they are considered a new job. And then we will have a lot of new jobs come. That is a staggering statistic to me. The other thing that is very much happening in the workplace right now, in the professional world, it's a little slow to happen, but it is what we need to happen before we can widely adopt a lot of new technologies and things. And that is the reskilling of people. The example I'd like to use for this is several years ago, my family and I were traveling outside of Detroit, Michigan, and there were just billboards everywhere looking for truck drivers. And one of them was offering like a $10,000 signing bonus if you had a license to be a truck driver and you signed on with this company. That's how desperately they needed over-the-road truck drivers. Well, if you think about what needs to happen for us to have autonomous trucking, right, where we can put self-driving trucks on the road to move our freight 24/7, 365, without having to worry about truckers that need to take a break or finding skilled workers or giving $10,000 signing bonuses. Like, we need to figure out that technology. The technology somewhat exists. We would have to do a lot to make that safe and viable. But the biggest obstacle to the corporate world is, what do we do with all the truck drivers? Like, we have to re-educate and reskill them and put them in new jobs. And who's going to do that? So all of those things, the technology piece, the human resource piece, and the roads have to kind of be reimagined. There's a lot in the way, but the big piece that everyone kind of struggles with is how do we reskill people and who reskills. So what we will see happen going forward, and will be very much the reality of your life and career, is constantly reskilling and constantly learning. So I think the biggest flex you can make, whether you go to college, a 4-year college, whether you go to Ivy Tech or community college, whether you go into certification program, whether you become an apprentice, whatever path you take after college or after high school, you build upon what you're doing in high school as I'm a learner. I know how to learn and apply new skills, because that's going to be what we have to do all the time, is just constantly reskilling and relearning things. So how do we prepare you, high school students, for a future that isn't even like fully defined? Like, we don't know. Like, when I was in high school before the internet, and I said, oh, I kind of like doing this. Or I had a friend who loved to read. So she was like, I want to major in English. And I was like, I think I might want to do business management or business marketing. We were supposed to get that education, get those jobs, and stay in those jobs until we retired. Like, it was a very straight path. Probably that's the experience of many of your parents. That is not going to be the reality that you have. Those things will be gone globally. We will not have defined paths that are, straight lines. So how do we prepare you? And that is a great question that I ask a lot. And when I do research for it, it constantly revolves around making sure you have the skills to thrive in the workplace. Now, notice I didn't say the credentials. Like, I didn't say the degree, I didn't say the certifications, I didn't say anything about any specific, skill set or even skill set, right? Everything needs to be just very diverse and constant. So for you to be able to learn and continue to learn. So this is a weird thing to tell you, because you are sitting in a K through 12 education system here in the United States that has traditionally been very much a pathway. I would imagine, to be in the classes that you're in, to be at this conference today, you have chosen like a STEM or computer science pathway. And a pathway is a long line, right? Which I just told you 2 slides ago is not how we're going to be doing things anymore. So there was an interview with somebody who's like in the tech world and knows about education that says, in schools, we usually silo our content, which means the computer science people don't often work with the English teachers, right? Or the history teacher and the performing arts teacher don't really do many projects together, right? It's all by department. And even when you get in your pathway, you're doing more math and programming and other courses that somebody that wants to do arts or even performing arts or English business courses might be doing. So what we have to figure out, and we're going to have to do this ourselves, because there's not going to be any change in the education system that's going to do this for you. When you get to college, if you go to college, or if you get an associate's degree or do something at Ivy Tech, those are very much going to be those same cluster of classes that support whatever you choose to study. And you'll be given opportunities to take electives. And what we want you to think about is, how can you create an interdisciplinary space for yourself? And that's more of what I want to talk about with you today. And that involves being what we call T-shaped. So this guy is a T, right? He's got his arms out, and what his body represents, and why we call these T-shaped people, is this: we need broad skills, right? I've already mentioned skills so many times this morning, and then a deep knowledge in something, right? So let's look at some examples of this. We used to have, if you look at the bottom, an I-shaped person was just an expert at everything. And I've run into that so many times in tech, where somebody understands a certain part of programming or a certain project management skill or whatever it is, and they don't know anything about what anybody else does. They just do this one thing. And that's kind of going away, right? So that was the vertical bar. The horizontalist is somebody that's like can do a lot of different things. Maybe they've moved from job to job to job to job, or like skills, they've learned new skills. They can do coding, they can do programming, they know a little bit about cybersecurity, they do project management, maybe they do some customer support, but they just know enough about all those things. They never get really deep on anything. When we put the I and the generalist together, that's when we get the T-shaped person. So what does this look like when we get into the tech world, right? So let's look at like maybe a software developer. If you have a T-shape and a software developer, they may have a deep expertise in like a specific programming language, but then they also are good at communication, written communication, networking. They do problem solving more so than just like keyboarding, the programming. They can problem solve. They can look at things differently. They have a vast set of experiences around that. If we look at UX designers, right? Instead of just being user design centered and only doing user design and researching design, maybe they learn a little bit of coding. Maybe they sit in and understand business strategy, like what the business cares about and what the business brand is like, and how we can create interfaces with the customer to extend the brand. And maybe they're good at project management. Maybe they went and got a project management certification. And that is not typical of a UX designer. So now they've added all of these other things to their skill set that takes them from being that just vertical line to being a T-shape. So how do you develop depth? So this, if you remember the vertical bar where the guy was standing, is the depth. Like, what do you choose to go deep on? And this is where you're probably already starting to like naturally find that you are good at something. Well, but understand, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that's what you're going to need to do, right? Like, I'm really good at washing toilets and cleaning bathrooms. I don't want to do that. Like, I really don't. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm good at it. I developed a skill, but I don't like to do it, right? So I would not choose that. I'm really bad at baking, but I enjoy it. So I work at it to try to get better, right? So the whole like find your purpose, chase your passion, all that nonsense that we try and tell you all. A specialization is just something that maybe you could focus on intently, and maybe you're good at it. Maybe you enjoy it. Maybe get lost in it, right? Like math, science, could be writing, could just be the programming of it all. So you find a specialization. And then you, again, pursue advanced coursework, whether it's like the courses you're in high school, or if you want to do honors or AP classes in that. Maybe you want to get certifications. Maybe you want to, do Ivy Tech or college in this area. But while you're doing it, look for opportunities to work on projects and research. Things like, if you wanted to be a Next Tech Catapult and work on the portfolio project, if you had the opportunity to work with somebody to do research, if you could find a way to get projects where you're developing expertise, and then finally find somebody who works in this field to find out how are things changing. This is not to knock your educators, your teachers. They work hard to stay current and understand what is happening now. They are teaching you what we know now, but the people in industry, the people in these jobs, they know what's coming, right? Their job is to know ahead and know the future a little more. So it's very important to couple like all the amazing experiences you're having in the classroom and with your teachers with people outside in the work world. And we'll talk more about that later. So that was how to get depth. How do we get breadth, right? Like, how do we get the top of our T? This is where you want to add electives. This is where, and this, I had this happen with some finance students one time. They were on Wall Street. We'd taken a field trip, and they asked the stockbroker on Wall Street, should I major in finance and minor in accounting, or should I major in accounting and minor in finance, right? For you guys, it would be like, should I major in computer science and minor in, information technology, or should I reverse those things, right? They're very close, very, very close, almost the same thing in some instances. The advice from that gentleman to those students was pick one and then get a minor somewhere else on campus, right? Go pick a philosophy or psychology or something completely different. where you could have conversations and you could open your mind up and not be on the same like path all the time. So I echo that. I have always thought that was brilliant advice. Explore diverse electives when you can. It's so important. The second one, participate in interdisciplinary projects. I don't know if you have the opportunity to do that in high school in your courses very much, but there are a lot of clubs and organizations, even if it's robotics, any of those instances where you can be in a club or organization that, and not just join the club, right? But be part of officers, leadership, whatever that looks like. Sometimes it's as simple as Riley Dance Marathon, right? That is so different than like what you're doing in your computer classes, in your computer science world, that if you can find a way to be involved in the event planning, that's considered like interdisciplinary almost, where you're getting experience outside of what you're doing for your like focus. Developing soft skills. I hate that we call these soft skills because they're really not soft. I think they're essential, but how to communicate well, how to talk to people, how to collaborate, work in group projects. I know most of you on this in this conference are probably people that when they say we're going to work on this as a group, you kind of groan because you know several people in the group aren't going to do the work the way you would do the work, and you're going to have to carry them. And the people that are always excited about group work are always the ones that are a red flag for me because they want other people to do the bulk of the work. Usually, not always. That's stereotypical, but it seems to be fairly true. But your teachers have you do group work because that is an absolute essential life skill. We do that all the time in the business world. So critical thinking and problem solving through activities, through projects, through different things. And I'm going to talk to you later about how to keep track of these skills when you use them. It's very important. And then the extracurricular activities, like to many people in the business world, if you're in an extracurricular activity and you're very involved at a high level, not just show up for meetings, but you do the leadership and the teamwork and the events and the fundraising and all of those things, that is very important. It is often looked at like an internship. So that's incredibly important to add to your breadth of your T-shape. So strategies for developing a T-shape. How do we do that? The first one is real world experience. I mentioned Catapult. Next Tech Catapult is one way to come in, get access to working professionals, to do field trips and tours and meet people where they work and look at higher ed. And then the whole time you're working on a portfolio, it's an incredible real world experience that translates so well. There are opportunities for that, I'm guessing, in some of your classes. Your teachers probably have you working on projects that are real world like experience. Being able to go out and get internships or jobs that help you is phenomenal. Developing digital literacy, right? Building proficiency in all of these technological tools and platforms. I can't tell you, I'm the mother of a college freshman, and I use ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude from AI all day. And my son is not allowed to use those in his classes. And I know why, right? Because we get lazy and we put in our assignment and we want it to do the work for us. But what we've had to what I've tried to explain to my son is like, you can write your English paper and then give the rubric and the English paper to ChatGPT and have it give you better output, like better ideas, right? It doesn't have to write your English paper, but we're not necessarily comfortable enough at the high school and the college level to understand anything other than defense, right? We try to keep you from utilizing this to replace your critical thinking and problem solving skills and to actually do the work and learn, right? Those were very important things you need to do while you're in school. But we're not giving you the developmental digital literacy around AI to use it in a really good, effective way. I personally think you should all be taking a class on how to write prompts. That is probably one of the biggest skill sets for the future. If those aren't offered to you, and you know that it's important because you've talked to enough people in the world and that's what they're doing, and you see the job trends and you know that's where it's going, go out and do that for yourself. Develop those skills for yourself. Don't sit and wait for somebody to teach it in a classroom. you can help yourself. We have access to more information today than our ancestors had in their entire lifetime combined. So we can do this. And then finally, creativity and innovation. Any company out there would hire somebody who is creative and innovative and can prove that through focusing on all the things we talked about, understanding the trends, being experienced, having had jobs. And I can tell you, if you work as a cashier somewhere, if you work in fast food, if you have a job today, that's real world experience. That is applicable. You have transferable skills in that job that will transfer to your job that you want to get for your career. So don't think that you're not already doing some really good stuff. Now, many of you probably have a pretty demanding academic situation if you're at this conference today and you're in computer science where you don't have a lot of time to have a job. Then find other ways to learn and develop those skills. All right, so the other thing I want to talk about is we've talked about T-shaped people. I also want to talk about a little bit about how to think outside the box for careers, because for as long as I have been teaching, and I said it was 18 years, students that work in tech always want to go to work for a big tech company. And it always blows my mind, which that's hypocritical coming from me because I went to work for the world's largest company like 3 days after I graduated from college. So I get that. To have a Google or an Apple or a Microsoft or a Salesforce or something like that on your resume is incredible. I get that. But there are so many jobs out there where you can work for companies that are not necessarily tech companies, but you can do tech jobs in them. And the reason I bring that up and the reason I say it's important is earlier I talked about you finding like a specialization or a passion or a purpose or something that really gets you excited. So I would really stress to you that if you took a look at industries or problems in the world that you would like to be part of solving, and then figure out, like if you're worried about finding a cure for diseases or making healthcare better or finding new ways to, get us access to healthcare or medication or whatever that is, you can actually get technology jobs in the healthcare industry. So you think about how much you would need to know about the healthcare industry. That might help you pick some electives, right? That would help you pick a minor if you go to college. Like you can minor in something that is related to the healthcare situation that you want to know something about. So thinking about talking not only to people that work in technology jobs, but talking to people that maybe work in industries that you're interested in, or that do things that you would think it would be so cool. And is there a way I, with tech skills, could come in and work in that industry? Or could I work at a hospital? What would that look like? Could I work in a lab? The other one is finance and banking. Almost all of finance and banking, fintech as we call it, right? Financial technology, everything is digital now. Blockchain is coming. We've got more AI coming. Algorithm is getting involved in that. And I thought this was super interesting to think about. I found the fastest growing jobs in the next 5 years, a fintech engineer. So knowing financial technology engineering is the second fastest growing job. So imagine if you knew that was going to be the case for the next 5 years and you were like, I love finance and I like you could go to college, major in your computer science, develop those skills, but you could also either double major or minor in like finance, where you could understand those things that are going on and don't just show up to the finance company only knowing technology. But if you know enough about finance, how valuable you would be and how many more job opportunities you would have. The same thing. So we talked about healthcare, we talked about fintech, agriculture. There's so much technology in agriculture right now. And then obviously education. We're going to get more and more and more technology, more virtual reality involved in our class. There's so much technology coming to education. So for somebody who says like, oh, I've always kind of thought I'd be a good teacher, but I really love computer science. Well, you could actually go to work for educational technology companies. So there's a lot of crossroads out there that we don't traditionally talk about enough, I think, for you all, that you can understand when you go out to do networking or talk to people, that you can really start to talk to people that work in different industries as well. Manufacturing is another one. energy and utilities, how we used our energy grid, finding renewable technology there, how we capture energy from like the solar or wind, and then like how do we sell that and reuse it and move it around, like the optimization. There's a lot of really cool things happening in a lot of different industries. Technology and transportation and logistics, entertainment and media. I mean, I was laughing Sunday night, the Grammys were on, and somebody said, the young lady who won for Best Rap Artist, I think, was like, there's so many great talented people in Tampa, Florida. All the record companies need to send somebody to Tampa, Florida. I was like, record companies don't send anybody anywhere now to find artists, right? The artists are uploading their own music. Like, it just kind of cracked me up. I'm sure some of that traditional stuff exists, but there's just so much technology in Broadway shows or music or movies. There's so many opportunities for you. So how can you take this that I just talked about and apply it to what you're doing? The second bullet point there, the first one that's red, stay curious, stay researching new technologies, different industries, all of those things. And then the soft skills like problem solving, communication, adaptability, things that you probably get without knowing you're getting in some of your classes, but you need to really kind of parallel put those up as important as your programming and your computer science skills. All right, so I got about 8 minutes left. We're going to talk about networking. And I do not mean the networking of the technical kind. I mean the like going out and talking to somebody kind. But I will give you a technical networking example to talk about why this is important. So if we talk about the network effect, which is commonly applied to business and economics in terms of the impact, the value that there is to adding more users to a product. And I love down here on the bottom, they use the telephone, right? So before we had the ability for texting or anything else, we just had telephones where you just picked it up and you called one other person. So any phone call was just a headset and another person. Then you had the ability to add many, many phones where you could call multiple people, maybe not even at the same time, but as more and more people got phones, you could call more people, right? It was crazy to think about. Well, now think we can do group chats, we can do multiple people on FaceTime, we can do virtual conferences where, we got 48 people in here. Like the value that we can add, because I could do this for just one of you, but it sure is more fun doing it for all of you. So you think about the value that's added with the more people that you can add to a product or service. And I'm sure most of you have maybe heard of Uber, right? The ride sharing app. There's OpenTable for reservations. So it's kind of like you go on to OpenTable and you pick restaurants. They're all there and you go, oh, I would think I'd like to go to Harry and Izzy's. Or if you're traveling, you could look up and find a restaurant and you can reserve a table. Instead of going to every restaurant's website, it's an interface that has all of them. And then most of us have heard of Airbnb, where you, instead of going to a hotel to spend the night, you get on and you reserve like a room or somebody's whole house or something like that. The example I wanted to give here, and I think this is what students do a lot, is we work so hard at academics because for years you've heard from your teachers and your parents and the world, going to school is your job, right? Like your job is to get good grades. Your job is to get an education. This is what you got to do. The thing about that is if you were Uber when you first started out and you worked so hard to get drivers, right? You have to get drivers who want to sign up as a driver on your app, clean their car, and make themselves available to go pick up people and take them places 24/7 across the world. This is a global, service. So if they worked really hard at getting drivers, but they never worked really hard at educating the public that we know we told you your whole life, don't ever get in the car with a stranger. But if you'll get on this app and you'll put in your credit card information, you can hit a button and a stranger will show up in their car and you will get in it and they will take you someplace. When that first came out, people were like, oh, no, my mother would not want me getting in a car with a stranger, right? Like they had to educate the drivers and the passengers constantly on safety, how to use the app, why this is preferable, why would you choose it over a car service or a taxi or a bicycle. Like, they had to do so much work on both sides of that. I want you to think of yourself like Uber. If all you do is school, right? School, and you don't have a network, you don't talk to people, you don't build a good network of people that will help you understand things and be with you for the long haul, and you're not getting skills, nobody's going to hire you when you get out of high school and college to be a student. Like, you're going to need to add to this. And the key word in that sentence was you are going to need to do this, because the teachers in high school can't do it for you. Professors can't do it for you. You are going to have to build your network. So where do you look? These are all examples of places, and you can look that you already have network, your family connections, people your teachers know, people that are at this conference today. All of us care about helping you. You've got companies you can reach out to. You've got all this access of people that want to help you. So start now and start building connections. You've got what I call your golden ticket. Remember, way back when I started, I am a high school student, and you have access to things like internship opportunities, job shadowing, volunteer position. I want you to spend your whole summer job shadowing a bunch of different people, having Zoom calls, going to their offices, having coffee, asking them a ton of questions. That is how you're going to build both sides of your network. And this I give you because I want you to understand the trust pyramid. The bottom talks about linear transactions. A transaction is, oh, I have to have an internship. Let me start randomly finding a bunch of strangers who might want to give me an internship. You have to start that now. You have to build relationships, get to know people. Your first meeting with a network connection should not be you asking for something other than, tell me about yourself. Why did you pick this job? Like, asking them questions, not asking for you to have an internship or a job. So you want to start now and develop those conversations so people help you along the way, and that you're not just showing up to ask for something. That builds more trust. And we talked about skills like communication. This is where you build communication, is starting these practices now. If you're a high school student and you think it is the most awkward thing to reach out to a professional and you cannot imagine how embarrassed and nervous you would be, that's your sign to do it. Nobody expects a high school student to show up experienced in random conversation and comfortable with asking questions and talking about themselves. We get that this is new to you, and we want to be there for you. This is how you learn. So we don't judge you in that. This will build your confidence. So all the different places you can utilize finding places and people to help you. School resources, so it could be career fairs, things like this, clubs and organizations, when you volunteer, asking for informational interviews, and then what's called an elevator pitch. This is such an old term, but we used to tell students, have your elevator pitch, or people that were selling a product. If you got on an elevator with a decision maker, you got an elevator with somebody you wanted to talk to, and you only had from one floor to the fifth floor to talk to them, which means in 2 minutes, tell me what you're about. I'm a high school student. I'm thinking about a career in X, and I would really like to hear about your career journey. Boom, that's your elevator pitch. It doesn't have to be that hard. Every person that you come across is a possible contact. Every guest speaker that you have, everybody your parents knows, everybody that you can find. If you're old enough to be on LinkedIn, if you're over 16, get on LinkedIn. And understand, ChatGPT can help you. Remember earlier, I said, don't make it write the email, have it help you, okay? So I have 1 minute left. I wanted to give you one bit of advice, and then we got one question. The skills that I talked about earlier, as you can go out and ask ChatGPT, you can do a Google search. What skills am I developing, right? So if you will start keeping a spreadsheet of the skills you're developing, whether you use it in a class, in a group project, in anything that you're doing, maybe you do landscaping in the summer, figure out the skills you do, define the skill. And again, you have lots of resources out there. You can go out and Google, what are transferable skills of mowing the grass, right? You can find these, and then keep this for yourself so you always have it to look back on. All right, that went really fast. I think I have a question, I believe. Do vet industries work with animals use a lot of tech? Yes, they absolutely positively do. That is a phenomenal question. Veterinarian, I would put right in with healthcare and medical. And there's biotech, med tech, and I know there's probably vet tech. That would be something great to research on. All right, it is 9:50. Our time together went so fast. I hope this was helpful. I hope you have the best rest of your day. You have such an exciting conference agenda. I know the best is yet to come, I think. So thank you guys for joining me this morning.